Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 45 of the Rambler podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. On this episode of the podcast, we're thrilled to have Jeremy Young as a guest. Jeremy graduated from Cathedral Prep in 1994 and is the Chief Executive Officer of Federal Resources Corporation, a mission-focused cybersecurity and privacy company headquartered in downtown Erie's West Bayfront neighborhood. He is an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year finalist, seasoned technology and consulting executive with 25 years of experience leading organizations inside Fortune 500 companies, small medium businesses, and private equity focusing in the public sector marketplace. As the CEO of Federal Resources Corporation, Jeremy leads an organization that was recently ranked number 710 in the Inc. 5000 list of the top 5,000 fastest growing privately held companies in America in 2023. This was the company's fifth appearance on the list since 2017. FRC also received the 2023 Inner City 100 Award for being one of the 100 fastest growing businesses in under-resourced communities in the U.S. Additionally, FRC is a certified great place to work. Along with his role at FRC, Jeremy is a managing partner at Vector Resources Incorporated, a leading women-owned small business providing professional services to the National Nuclear Security Administration inside the U.S. Department of Energy. So we're talking about some high-level stuff here with you. You will also see Jeremy's name with J. Young Enterprises, LLC, which is an impact holdings company focusing efforts on real estate and economic redevelopment projects and ventures. And Jeremy originally is from Erie. He is extremely passionate around the opportunity to drive economic and community growth in his hometown and throughout Western Pennsylvania. He is a proud graduate of Cathedral Prep, as I mentioned above, and serves on the board of directors also, lending his expertise, to both the finance and advancement committees, which is where me and you first met, working together on there.
Absolutely, yeah.
And recently, Jeremy was also honored by Pennsylvania's City and State magazine with the Impact Award, recognizing 75 citizens around the Commonwealth for their contributions to the revitalization of Erie. So, Jeremy, thrilled to have you on as a guest. Welcome.
Yeah, Jimmy, thanks a lot. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for the invite. This is great.
Yeah. Well, and like I mentioned just a minute ago, when I came on to the advancement team in 2021 and you came into this committee meeting and you see all these board members and you're like, oh no, and I meet
staring you down. Staring you down.
Yeah, who's this fresh meat walking in here?
Who's this retread that came back
yeah,
to come
right.
do this again? Right.
Exactly. But quickly you get over that and you come to meet all the great people who serve on our board, including yourself. And just have to say thank you for your work on the board. I've seen what you guys have done a little bit more closely than probably others who are listening, and it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time. I'm sure you guys put into this more than people know. But just want to say thank you for what you do in serving on the board.
No, I really appreciate that. You're right. It's with our board. It's a group of very passionate people, and it's great being surrounded by that type of being in that type of atmosphere. So
yeah,
it's great to be able to give back, and I think through this conversation, you'll feel that how much that this experience actually meant to people like me and the people that serve on the board today.
Absolutely.
So it's great.
And I would definitely echo that from, talking to you. It's that prep pride, that brotherhood that was so important to all of us. And it just, transcends in everything you do. And, as I've met with you and talked and, and kind of starting this podcast, it'd be very appropriate to say, even for yourself, what started that for you with that love for prep? Why did you attend prep? What was the draw to come here? And just what was that decision like for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, it was a pretty easy decision. And I say that as a little bit of a weird thing because I was the first person in my family to go to prep, and so my dad was one of six, and a lot of his family kind of moved away, but at the end of the day, I was the first one to go.
Yeah.
And so it was it was definitely one of those things that I actually went to grade school over at Blessed Sacrament.
Okay.
And so
Yep.
I got introduced and indoctrined into Cathedral Prep at that point.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much a no-brainer for me. But the reality of it was too is that at that point when I was growing up, at that certain age you have these grandiose dreams that you're like this great athlete and all these kind of things, and I just so happened to be a baseball player growing up, and one of the things and one of the relationships that I had with just playing locally here was with Stan Brzezicki, Coach Brzezicki.
Yeah.
And he was just one of those things that was like, hey, let's go to prep, let's play baseball, let's go do it, and I was like, this is great, and so I got introduced to the family that way.
Yeah. Well, and that's awesome. We all have our own ways of, getting connected to prep, and mine also happened to be the baseball route, being my dad was the coach here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. And so him being the coach at prep really led to me first being introduced to it, because I was a young kid when he was coaching here, and I remember from that point on I was wearing prep gear, and then there was no question in my mind. There was no other options. I was going to prep, not by him saying it, but I mean me just knowing like that's where I was going.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That Stan's influence on you led to you making even more of an easy decision besides just being at Blessed Sacrament. Too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, I'll never even forget like day one where. We all come in ninth grade and we don't know where we are, where we're going, but yet our Blessed Sacrament crew kind of stuck together.
Yeah.
And so it's like the Blessed Sacrament crew, we were all together at a lunch table, and then next thing you know, we're branching to the St. George guys, and then so it's like, that grade school, middle school, that parochial competitiveness that you had growing up between St. George and Blessed Sacrament or OLC or OLP, and all of a sudden we're all friends sitting at the lunch table because we're all in the same boat together. We don't know. We're like, oh my gosh, we're in the big high school now.
It is funny. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're not competing against each other anymore, so you're cool,
Right.
You're cool now. Yeah, forget about those words I said on the field last year.
Right, exactly. So it was it was a great experience to have that, and it's also one of those things that I always think about where, that time was such like a foundational time, and it's one of those things where, I'm not one of those guys that you live in your high school years. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
But it's one of those guys that truly appreciate that time because what that did was, just really set a maturity and set the stage for me to go on in life and have confidence in things I was doing and appreciative towards the experience that I had, and that's kind of what also gets me involved with the board and being a donor here for the school as well.
Yeah, and no, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the idea that I try to describe to people is like you said, I don't live in the past of being in high school. Like I'm excited about where I'm at now in my journey of life and where I'm going, but I appreciate so much what I got from being a Rambler, from being a student here, that it's just a different feeling, and it's one that you can't really describe, I think, unless you went to prep, or people who went to Villa probably feel the same way. Yep. It's just something you can't describe. It's just it's special.
Yeah, it's very special, and those of us from whether it's the Cathedral Prep background or the Villa background, and today everybody being together, to your point, I'm sure that's the same type of feeling across the board.
Yeah.
Because it means a lot.
Yeah.
It absolutely means a lot, and it was life changing along the way too.
And you've mentioned, Coach Brzezinski and some of the other things that, made your time at Prep special. And what else, when you look back at those days of being a student, do you really just kind of appreciate maybe more so than others that really stick out to you?
When you sit there and you think about it, and I guess whether you kind of reflect on it later on in life because you don't recognize it at that time, right?
Yeah.
I'm 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. I'm invincible
what
at
do
that
we know?
point. Right, exactly. It's like we were talking about earlier where you can like run through the wall. No, wait, I step back, go try it again. Oh, wait, step back, put a helmet on, try to do it a third time.
Let me run a little faster this time. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if you truly recognize it until you kind of go a little bit down your life journey.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I'll sit there and say, yeah, I have a lot of great memories with Cathedral Prep and my time here. And people, I use those stories today. I mean, so three things right off the bat. I always talk about a story with Bobby Achille. Mr. Achille, he was my algebra teacher here in 9th grade, but he was also my basketball coach when I was at Blessed Sacrament. So he was like a familiar face when I got here.
Right.
And one of the things I learned from that experience is, you understand that people care, right? This community is a caring community. The teachers care, the faculty cares, the administration cares.
Yeah.
And they care about you individually,
which
you don't get a lot of out there. And so that was one of my things that I look back and reflect upon. Another story I give folks, it was from a time where I was in theology class with Father Hahn. I don't know, it was Father Hahn. Father Hahn was probably still around when you were here too, right? And he gave us this assignment, and this assignment was write down all your dreams. It doesn't matter what they are, just write them down.
Yeah.
And bring it back to me. And you kind of thought about that and wrote this stuff down, and it was interesting just because at that time in my life, again, it's not like I was writing down world peace, hunger, all these kind of things, right?
Probably get drafted in the MLB, right?
Yeah. Hey, I want to see the world. I want to make some money. I want to do all these things, right? But that lesson there was a lesson that taught me to dream big. Right, and I remember having this list of stuff that I actually kept with me throughout even my career, and it was funny because in my 30s I was cleaning out one of the drawers and one of the bins of stuff, and I remember that I had that list, and a lot of that stuff actually came true, which was awesome.
That's really cool.
But it was a dream big, and don't be scared to do that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, being a baseball guy here with like Coach Brzezicki and Dave Hess and things like that. It was I'll call it a work hard, stay hungry type of mentality.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't a thing of it's not practice that makes perfect. It was perfect practice that makes perfect, which gave you the work ethic to kind of continue to challenge yourself.
Right.
And so, having those types of experiences and looking back on those at the time, like I said, it's not like I understood it.
Right.
But it kind of was a foundational piece that rolled into your character.
Yeah, things that happen later on that you then remember those lessons or those stories you had that you realize, oh, they did know what they were doing.
Right. Somebody actually knew something, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's funny because one thing I'll never forget, and we still do it today here. Is our awards day.
Yeah.
Our sports awards or awards day.
Yeah.
And it was my senior year, and I'd been playing baseball, so one of the awards, which was voted upon with your team, was the Sockley Award, which was the baseball award. And my teammates felt that I represented that, and so that was something that meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
That I ended up of getting from our team. But also, the one thing that meant, when I think about it, it probably meant even more, was by complete shock and surprise, I'll never forget when they called my name for the Monsignor McDonald Award, which was something that was voted upon by faculty and coaches of other sports, and kind of a thing where, I don't know, it kind of made me think and realize that people are watching, people are looking at your example, and define you as here's an opportunity to define yourself as a leader or a prep person, or what you can do with those characteristics. And that's one thing I think, even from all my experience and when I look back and learning lessons that I had, probably that moment was probably the hook, line, and sinker moment for me, for like Cathedral Prep.
Yeah.
To the point of like, wow, that meant so much to me even at that point that I carried that on to even today.
Yeah.
And it did drive so much of a passion for what we're doing here at the institution.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and even cooler that, for your experiences and how much it means to you, and myself and listeners include, I'm sure can hear that passion, from you as you're talking about it, to then do something about it where you are on the board and you're able to influence big decisions that are happening for the school's future, and you've been a part of that now for a couple years, and it's an exciting time for the school's history, but also a lot of change, a lot of questions, a lot of directional, like, what are we doing moments, I'm sure. But can you talk to us about, what your responsibilities as a board member are for those of us who maybe aren't as familiar with what that means? And then, originally I was thinking of the question being why you feel like you want to serve, but I think that's pretty obvious. Pay it forward. So I think more so, what makes you passionate now about serving, where the school's at in today's place?
Yeah. It's funny because sometimes you get invited to boards and they're truly opportunities that you just have hey, I have this title that I'm a board member. I don't have to do too much type of thing. And it's all just show up. But my tenure with the board, number one has there's been a lot of changes over my couple terms now at the board, and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, but it does come down to having great leadership too with the board. People like Sarah Callner has been unbelievable for the board.
Yeah.
When I first started, Dave Slomsky was still the board chair.
Yeah.
And then he came in and did the president for a little while.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's great leadership with that too. That brings everybody together.
Right.
And being able to find somebody like a Kevin Smith to come lead, prep moving forward, there's been very big decisions.
Yeah.
Right. Not only the decision of this, of prep and Villa coming together, but it's also around leadership towards the future and preparing this institution to continue forward, because it's still a challenging time out there.
Yeah.
And what we're asking for is people to come be a part of this and get an education here and pay for the education here, and take next steps moving forward in their lives.
Right.
And that's very challenging for a lot of families. I mean, I was one of them, right? I mean, my father was a local firefighter here with the Erie Fire Department, and we didn't have a lot of we lived here in the city, and so we paid the school tax to the city, and then we also did Cathedral Prep too, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of get the double hit on it, and I get it, and it's one of those things where we're very, very conscious of that as a group here,
right?
And I think with a lot of the decisions that's been made over the last several years, those are very hard decisions that I don't think a lot of people could stomach making that decision, or those types of decisions in other boards or other types of organizations, right? Because those are challenging things.
Right.
But with my involvement today, I really sit in two committees, and you and I cross paths all the time in the advancement committee.
Right.
So it's also, hey, how do we get dollars in from our alumni? And that's a challenging thing.
Yeah.
That's a challenging thing.
Yeah.
But the creativeness around that, and the group, and what you guys have done as a team as well, from the advancement side of the house. I mean, it's very, very impressive, and it's exciting to see that, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these the institution that we're all a part of, we don't get tax dollars or federal funds or stuff like that, right? So we actually have to sustain on tuition and our donors,
right?
And it's extremely important to be able to do that.
Yes.
And so the work that you guys are doing is fantastic with that, and I love to see the involvement and the excitement that even you bring to the organization as well. So it's great to see that.
Well, thank you. I'll mention that while you're.
Well, make sure we put down a performance review or something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, where's this
5
committee
stars all the way across? But yeah, I mean, because it's it's very competitive for people's dollars out of their pocket for this type of stuff, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things. The other committee I sit on is actually the finance committee, right? So where the dollars are and tuition costs and the cost to educate each student that comes through the doors here.
Right.
There's a lot of discussion and conversation around things like that.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy time.
Right.
It's a very competitive market out there.
Yeah.
And we need to still continue to stay in the forefront of these types of things and create a great product, because parents are sending their children here.
Yeah.
And they want their children educated and moving on to the next stages of their lives.
And I think the best thing that can show the results of that is when you look at the enrollment numbers and how strong the incoming freshman class was this year. I think we were budgeting for whatever number it was, maybe 160 kids. We ended up at close to 185 or something like that. And to me, that just shows the great work that Tim Doherty and Christine Nutt are doing over there for enrollment to get the kids, to see prep, but also the product, to your point, of what we're putting here between, the school and the academics and this co-institution of Cathedral Prep now, or gender Cathedral Prep now, to basically say families are coming and they're liking what they're seeing and they're investing their money into having their kids here. All around, it's an exciting time. I'm really optimistic about the school's future, all the things that you and the board are doing. It's a good place that we're at right now, and continuing to push forward now and grow within this new school that we do have.
Yeah, I can't agree more with it. I think it's a great spot to be in. We have a beautiful building here with all the work that's happened.
Yeah.
The changes that's occurred here inside the building itself. To actually also talk about some of the things that are going on with Mother Teresa Academy and that mission and that effort.
Yeah.
What an unbelievable story, and how you can have that mission from Mother Teresa Academy roll into Cathedral Prep and then roll over to Gannon, all within a 3-block radius.
Right.
Is a wonderful story to be able to talk about and be able to tell people.
Yep, and we'll definitely have more about Mother Teresa Academy coming out here, soon. It's so secret, but we want to continue to promote and educate people about the mission of that school.
Absolutely.
And what we're doing there.
Absolutely.
So to kind of pivot a little bit, we talked about prep, we talked about the board, your time, in between the two, and with the time we have left, I'd like to dive a little bit into the amazing work you're doing at your company, because you guys have been doing awesome. I read it in the bio. What were you guys, number 710 in the Inc. 5000?
This past year.
Yeah, you guys have been on there the last 5 years. Just a growing organization, a lot of stuff happening. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about what you guys do, who your company is, for those of us that have seen the name but maybe aren't as familiar about what you guys do.
Yeah, no, Jimmy and I appreciate that. Yeah, it's I guess I'll give you a little bit of my background with my career path.
Yeah.
I ended up graduating from Clarion University. But while I was at Clarion, before I graduated, I was awarded an internship with this small company called Hewlett-Packard, and my internship with HP actually brought me down to Washington D.C. and I was introduced to technology, the federal government, and a big city like Washington, D.C.
Yeah, right.
I was going from Erie to Clarion to all of a sudden this metropolis thing.
Right.
But yeah, I got an intro into a career path that I really haven't left. And, over my years, and as my career grew, whether it was me going back to school, doing an MBA or growing my professional career, one of the things that really came together for me or wanted to come together is that I had this entrepreneurial type of bone that said, hey, I want to do something that at least I think is cool.
Yeah.
Nobody else might think it's cool, but I might think it's cool.
Yeah.
And, eventually ended up happening that as my career grew, I was fortunate enough to have some opportunities that, my last corporate gig was in Washington, D.C., and when that ran out, I said, hey, I want to I want to do something like invest in my hometown of Erie, and I want to create an IT company up there that sells to the federal government, because I think we can do it just about anywhere. We don't have to be in DC to do this type of stuff. And what I ended up doing was I acquired a couple of companies around the Beltway. I slammed them together, called them Federal Resources, and relocated them to Erie. And everybody thought I was crazy.
Sure. Erie. What?
Erie. It was definitely a head scratcher for a lot of folks down the Beltway. But the thesis I had was, the world's kind of flat in this technology world for us these days, right? Technology allows us to be anywhere. We saw it during COVID. Yeah. You can be on Zoom calls and whatever and talk to somebody across the world. Right. But we were able to put ourselves in a position here where we've been able to recruit some fantastic talent. Several prep alums are sitting in our building. And
shout out Nick Dabowski, probably listening.
Shout out Nick Dabowski. And growing careers that way. Yeah. And I think the really cool part about it is, these are net new jobs to Erie. And we've been fortunate enough to grow from a couple of $1 million a year company to well into the six figures, or well into the nine figures actually. I mean,
I don't want to undersell.
Pause that and bring that one back. Yeah, well into the nine figures of the type of effort that we're doing. Wow. And it's been an unbelievable story. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody recently, and they were really surprised on the kind of size of a company that we've moved into. Yeah. And, we have our office in DC, we have our headquarters here in Erie, we have people throughout the country. And I told people, I go, due to our stealth marketing, we're the quietest nine-figure company anyone's never heard of in this space. And luckily in 2023, we were able to hire a director of marketing for our corporate to help us message that stuff out the other way. But it's been such a great journey. Yeah. And it's a very passionate thing for myself to be able to do that. Yeah. Another really cool thing is I get to do this with my best friend, who him and I have been together since Blessed Sacrament. Wow. We were prep together. Yeah. Right? My CFO is a guy, he's a 94 alum with me, and Doug Campbell. And, a few years ago, I got him to leave his partner at Ernst & Young to come be a CFO at this little thing over here called Fed Resources. And so we have a couple of prep guys doing stuff over there.
Well, that's what we like to hear. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Make sure you got him on your donor list.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, if he's listening, be prepared. Hit me up soon. So, I can just imagine people listening to this right now and thinking, okay, that's awesome for Jeremy. That's awesome for everything that your company's doing. What about in my situation? Maybe I have dreams, like you talked about. I have goals. I have aspirations of things that I want to accomplish. So how do you take the framework of knowing what you've accomplished and then provide us some advice on starting our own company or growing our companies to accomplish things that you've done in your career? And, it doesn't have to be as very detailed, but just some things that can help us get the gears going to be able to create success in our lives.
Yeah, no, Jimmy, that's a great question. I would have to tell you, I've had these things. I don't know. I have this little notebook, right? Yeah. This little notebook, I always write stuff down. Yeah. And whether it's sayings I come across or things like that, and one of the things I always think about it's the best way to predict your future is to create it. And when you kind of think about it from that perspective, and it's something around, hey, this is your life. Let's go control it. Because don't let the outside stuff push you in a direction. Why don't you have this power to do it yourself? Yeah. And a little bit of the entrepreneurial side of me to do that, but also the part where my experience here, like we talked about earlier, being a foundation piece, gave you the confidence to do that, because that's scary. Yeah. Right. So, but it's also a piece of, hey, let's take control of it and go.
Yeah.
And I think that can go a long way with people, and no matter what career path they have.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, whether it's in corporate USA, whether you're stepping out and doing your own thing, control it. Here, take that extra step. Do what you think is best.
Right.
When we talk to our folks all the time, I go, hey guys, if you screw up, that's okay. We have plenty of smart people that can fix it.
Yeah.
At least you did something.
Right.
So let's go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Mistakes. Yeah.
Right. And it's amazing.
Everybody wants to
what'll
come work for you now.
It's amazing what'll happen if you do anything, right?
Yeah.
And so when I think about it from that side, and I think about it from one of these other pieces too, and these are things that when I looked at, another one I always had was spectators don't make the news and observers don't steer history, right? And
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that it just tells you just do something.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what'll happen from there.
Well, and I think the longer you sit on something, the bigger it seems too, right? Like you might have something you want to accomplish, but sometimes when you just don't get started and you're not taking action, then it's even more daunting to think about pursuing that versus, if you just go out there and don't worry about if you make the mistakes, just go do something, it's going to turn into a positive, whether it's right there or you learn the lesson on what it's going to take to make it positive after you experiment a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's it. And that's really, I really do think that's a key.
Yeah.
And it's just about taking that first step.
Yeah.
Right. And I know the first step is always the hardest one. Right. But yeah, I think those are a couple of those things that I've always had in my head.
Yeah.
Of, let's make sure that if we're going to do something, let's go.
Yeah.
The whole room doesn't have to agree with it to the point of like, hey, I think it's cool, so I'm going to go do this, and let's go ahead. But one of the things that I've also learned around on the leadership side of the house is also a piece of, really, it's almost around having strong opinions loosely held, right? Like here's a way that I think we can move forward and we can do this and accomplish this.
Yeah.
My way might not be the right way. So do we have the folks around us to help us, change that opinion, change that methodology, change the way, right? And it's almost along the same lines we just talked about where, if you do something, there's plenty of smart people around that can help fix it. Yeah. But at least you kind of took the initiative to go.
Right. Well, and when you are looking to begin something or grow something, it's right there. In order to grow it, you need to create opportunities in which you can grow a company, a program, a project, whatever it is. I see it on my side with advancement. I might have certain different programs that I run, and if I just do the same old, I'm going to get the same old results or go backwards. You have to continue to try to reinvent, come up with something creative, new, and not just do rinse, repeat, because that's not going to work either. The name of the game and development, growing a business, doing whatever is just how can you reinvent yourself and continue to explore and expand upon what you are responsible for ultimately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't agree more with it. I think, and it's a lot of those things. There's this balance I think you need to have as well, right? Where, there's certain things that you do, and I call them don't fight gravity moments, right?
Yeah.
Don't fight gravity scenarios. There's certain things like for us, we sell technology and IT services to the government. Yeah. We don't fight gravity on that one, right?
Yeah.
However, there's different ways to do it, or different ways to approach a market, or different value adds that we could provide clients. Yeah. That make us look a little bit different. Right. We have the same core, right? Our don't fight gravity core. Right. Right. But at the end of the day, it's, hey, I have a lot of bad ideas, right? I have, as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure entrepreneurs that are listening to this are kind of giggling about it because we have a lot of bad ideas, right? But we also have some good ones too.
Just takes one to hit, right? But I think you have the, and what you do with your people, and you have the confidence to go for it, and you instill confidence in your team to go for it as well because you got their back.
Yeah, and you know what?
I think that's a good leadership point to, as I'm listening to, is the confidence that you give your team to go and try and fail, but learn and grow. And
It also comes around having a great team
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been able to attract some wonderful talent, and folks that kind of have the values and the ambitions that I even have
Yeah.
in the CEO seat.
Yeah.
And for stuff like that, that's the part that's probably attributed most to a lot of our growth and a lot of our fast growth is really around having people that work hard, are smart people, and have ambitions and want to be the best version of themselves that they possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's our culture, but it's also a great piece that we see it around our office and all the time. So
Yeah.
it's great to see that.
Yeah. Sticking on the subject of leadership, as you kind of look back, how has your approach to leadership really evolved? Like, what sort of lessons have you learned about, examples you remember of, well, that didn't really work out, and what I thought would be a good leadership decision, to now you see hindsight's 2020, like this would have been a good leadership decision on how to handle a situation. So I guess really the question being, how has your leadership evolved, and what lessons have you learned in effective leadership, as you've led your company now?
Yeah, well, and again, I think it's one of those things. I think it's almost a thing, maybe like it might be a quote or something like that from like Steve Jobs, right? Where he said along the lines of, you never really know if you've connected the dots unless you look backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yes.
However, you want to be confident enough that they're going to connect as you go forward.
Right.
and I really think it is around, I've made a lot of mistakes, but can you learn from those mistakes? Do you repeat those mistakes? And do you have confidence to make the decisions that you need to make? And do you feel confident in the direction that you're going? And I think, even from my side, it's those are some of those biggest learning lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, being able to be, at the end of the day, if being confident in making decisions quickly, and if you make a bad one, can you fix it?
Right. Yeah.
And fix it fast.
Right.
I mean, we're still a small business. We're still considered a small business. So it's we don't have the benefit of having an HR department of 50 people.
Sure.
We have the benefit of an HR department of 2. So you have them you have people's time.
Yeah.
For a certain amount of time. And you want to make the best use of that. So if you're doing the wrong thing, you better change fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's areas like that, being able to have that confidence or having the agility in your organization and your mentality to be able to operate.
Right.
Because the other thing is too, in the market that we work in, I mean, technology, which I love, is a great market.
Yeah.
But it's also one of the fastest changing markets. Think about, by the time we get our iPhone at AT&T or from the Apple Store or anything like that, it's already old.
It's already old. Yeah.
I mean, the first thing you do when you get out of the box is that you have to do a software update.
Yeah. Right.
Because it's old. And that's just how fast technology moves.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and especially in the market that we work in with the U.S. federal market space.
Yeah.
I talk about this all the time. I mean, if we're familiar with the Fortune 500, I mean, this customer is the Fortune 1. I mean, they are the most employees, most dollars spent on the entire planet, period, ever. And they get into so many different verticals: healthcare, financial, defense, energy, that it's very fast moving in that aspect. It's to the point where I say fast moving, like tongue in cheek of, hey, we go with the speed of government. Yeah. But there's so much out there. Yeah. And so much information out there. Right. That those are challenging spaces. For us too. But it's afforded us wonderful opportunities for growth for how we've been positioning ourselves as a company.
Well, in technology, of course, being an ever evolving market, but even just the workplace today. I mean, you look at the things that are coming out with AI and how it's going to optimize, just every old day jobs and how you can function and do your job even more efficiently, even if you're not in the technology space. There's just so much growing in technology that affects us all, even if we aren't in a technology services business like you and your company.
Well, I also think too, it's like even if you look at your day-to-day work, AI is going to be a big piece of that in the future.
Yeah, I believe it.
Now the other part is, and I think it's interesting to me to see how technology impacts, the work itself, like just the working conditions. And I'm willing to bet that in certain roles that they say, hey, this role is going to be eliminated because of AI. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to bet against that, because I think that person is going to sit there and say, thank God I can get that off my plate because I have 50 other things I'm responsible for these days too.
Right, yeah.
Right? So I think there's a little bit of that there on the horizon. But, but it's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, it definitely will be. And it'll be interesting to see over the years as that gets introduced even more so mainstream and whatnot. Well, I got time for just a couple more questions for you, so I'll do a quick hitter and then the final question for you. So you no doubt have worked with so many different people, and I'm sure you've met so many different groups of people where you meet people and that person's got it. You meet somebody, you're like, that person needs some improvement in their skill set and what they've done. Yeah. What advice do you have for us as professionals growing in our careers, just things that you've seen that, I don't know if I want to call them trends of a generation, but just advice you would have for us to grow in our careers and our professions?
Yeah, one thing I would say that I always have had is a mentor. Is mentorship.
Yeah.
I've always been able to go grab a cup of coffee with somebody, and whether even you talk about your job or your career, just getting their experiences.
Yeah.
It's a very important piece, and it just helps us grow a little bit more anyways. Yeah. And so, I would look at absolutely a mentorship type of thing. And I think, one of the things that we do inside our company is very much around, that mentor mentality. Where it's not a, hey, we roll our sleeves up just as much as everybody else to get into it. But we also want to make sure people learn from it as well.
Right. Well, I appreciate you saying that, because for people who've been listening to my podcast consistently, mentorship has been something that I've asked people directly, or it comes up indirectly, just like it did with you now, where it's a common theme where I think if you want to be successful in life, you want to grow from where you're at, you need a different vantage point sometimes just to learn from somebody's experiences, where they've been, what they've done. I would just highly encourage people who are listening to this, want to continue to grow in their career, seek out somebody, just offer to buy them coffee and just ask them questions. Let them do all the talking. Ask them questions about what they've done, how they've accomplished it, and whatnot, and learn about their story.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And believe me, those of us who get asked for a coffee, we usually don't have a problem hearing our own voice talk sometimes either, right? So
will you be listening to this podcast episode, Jeremy? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sure if you talk to Doug, he'd sit there and say, I'm going to have it like on instant repeat in the office all the time.
Yeah, that'll be his words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. All right, got one last question for you before we get you out of here. And this is a theme that I've asked alumni as the last question on the podcast. So if you could go back in time and speak at your graduation to your classmates, but knowing what you know now, talking to your classmates, what would you say to them?
Oh, wow. Well, you know what? Probably the biggest thing I would say is enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. I mean, we are all afforded such a wonderful opportunity to have this experience. And now with everybody being together at Prep Villa, everybody being together under one roof, it's a unique experience. There's so many relationships and so much of that network that you're going to see throughout your life.
Yeah.
That just take the time to enjoy it, because I was gone from Erie for a long time, and one of the best things that I had when I came back was running into people that, hey, where'd you go to high school at? I went to prep. Where'd you go to grade school at?
Yeah.
I went to Blessed Sacrament. And they already had me pegged on who I was, what type of person I was, where I grew up at. And it's that sort of thing that you appreciate with home.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And that means a lot. But it's enjoy the ride. Don't ever forget about home and that experience at home, because that's what's made you who you are to this point.
Yeah.
And that's who made you who you are. And that's what you instill on the next generation and your kids as well. Yeah. So that's probably the sentimental thing I'd probably hit on for that for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's good stuff. I always enjoy hearing the perspective on that, because it's a nice reflective question that you instill. And I'm sure there'd be roll ramblers, in there
there's definitely a roll ramblers in there, and probably enjoy your college years too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, that's good stuff. Well, Jeremy, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been fun talking about your time at Prep, the work you guys do at the board, and then really diving into your company a little bit here and talking about some of those things that you were able to share with us. Your time's valuable, and we appreciate you stopping down and doing this for us.
No, Jimmy, this is great. Again, I really do appreciate the invite, and roll Ramblers.
Yeah, there we go. Roll Ramblers. Thanks again, Jeremy.
Hey, awesome, Jimmy. Thank you.